Hey, what's up, YouTubers? Today I want to showcase and highlight a line I feel like doesn't get as much recognition as it should. And don't get me wrong, it's not me saying the line is perfect, because there's definitely some figures that could use some more work.
What the are you talking about, man?
But of course, I'm talking about the resurgence of the Spawn line from McFarlane Toys. So how did we get here? Well, let's travel back to early 2020 when there were leaks of a new articulated Spawn figure being made for the upcoming Mortal Kombat 11 game, because Spawn was going to be featured and it would be a DLC character in the game, and also because McFarlane Toys had the license to make toys for that video game. Now fast forward to March of 2020, where we have the official release date for this Spawn figure. Walmart was going to be the first retailer to carry it, and then shortly after, all the other online retailers and stores would carry it as well. But when I say this figure was a hot item, I mean it. As soon as this figure went live for pre-order to order online on Walmart's website, nobody could get it. And then what happened was McFarlane Toys released a list of physical stores that would carry them in store throughout the nation. And I remember everyone was scrambling around to every single one of those Walmarts to find it. Thankfully, I was able to find one. After that, every retailer that carried this online or in store sold out immediately. Even the variations of this that came out, the one with the mace and the one with the axe, would also sell out. Following the release of the Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn, Todd would then launch his Kickstarter campaign for his new remastered Spawn in April of 2020. And I know this is a very polarizing figure to some collectors because of the end result we got. Dante, I'm looking at you. But regardless of that, there's no denying this Kickstarter was a smashing success by nearly hitting 30 times its expected pledge goal. And this is just my observation and my theory, but to me that Kickstarter Spawn was a catalyst to bringing Spawn back on the retail shelves, because the company could then pitch to retailers that, hey, there's still a market for Spawn out there. And what we got was the resurgence of Spawn, as the following year in 2021, we got our first wave of Spawn figures hitting online retailers and store shelves. Which brings us to today. Since the first initial wave of figures, we've had 4 other waves released, as well as Platinum Editions, variants, and not to mention the Mortal Kombat versions as well. So today what I want to do is highlight some of my favorite figures from both the Spawn line and the Mortal Kombat 11 line as well.
First figure I wanted to highlight was this Monolith Spawn. He's a chunky dude. Now, at first glance, though, this dude has a lot of attention to detail and sculpting work throughout the whole figure. The only thing that, I've also seen in reviews is his torso is really hollow. But I've also heard the flip side is the reason why is also because if it was like a heavy piece, like a heavy plastic piece, you tend to like lean down a little bit more, lean over. But I don't know, it depends, because I think Violator was like a heavy plastic, but some people say that tends to fall over. I don't know. I don't have that one, unfortunately, but this figure is so dope. I'm glad to have this in my collection. I was able to pick it up at GameStop for a lot less than what the retail price is. He still goes for, I think, about like $40 to $50. If you're able to get it less than that, I highly recommend picking this one up. Next Spawn figure I want to highlight is this Raven Spawn. I was actually able to pick this up for like $10 on Amazon when it was on sale. I think he's still pretty low, but there's so much level of sculpting work and attention to detail on this. It's pretty damn awesome. Now, I think they also reissued this figure recently in the more updated packaging artwork that they use now, but I highly recommend picking them up. Next Spawn we're going to take a look at is actually from the Mortal Kombat 11 line, and you can actually find this on Amazon, ironically, too, for, I think it's like $12 to $15, but it's Commando Spawn, and even though this isn't a comic book Commando Spawn, it still has the same aesthetics and same stuff that stays true to the source material. Now, obviously, I gave him these guns. He came with some ectoplasm, I believe it's called, but it sucks that there were no guns with him, but I think it's because it's under the Mortal Kombat 11 banner, so it's technically Warner Brothers that we didn't get any guns with him, but we still have grenades and bullets, which is kind of funny, because if you look at the other Spawn figures, they do come with weapons, but I gave him my own, but it does work out. I do like Commando Spawn. I know when they first showcased that statue of Commando Spawn, people were like, when do we get the figure? And here we are with the figure, and you can still get it for a decent price. Now, this one's one of my favorite Spawns in the line. This is Plague Spawn. He came out last year, and shout-outs to the photographer at McFarlane Toys, Aesthetic One, for selling me on this figure. His photographs were awesome. I did photograph this as well, and in post-production, I boosted up the contrast and saturation on his mouth and his eyes because it stands out more, but I just love this figure. He has this sinister look to him, but the sculpting work on there is so detailed. Like, this thing's pretty awesome. Now, this next one I'm kind of indifferent to. Like, it's not my favorite. It's not the worst. It's, it's nice to have in the collection, though. It's the Throne Spawn. It's a nice callback to a statue he made in the past. But the reason why I'm kind of like, towards this is because when you take Spawn off the throne, he doesn't have a full cape. And I get it. He's meant to be sitting on the throne. And sometimes Spawn's also featured without a cape. It just would have been nice if they would have given us a full cape like you saw in that Batman 2-pack. But overall, I do like it for the display piece. Oh, and one quick note too, the skull that he's holding is from the Age of Apocalypse figure. Now, this next figure we'll take a look at is She Spawn. I actually was able to acquire this at Target on clearance for only like 13 bucks, but she came with a plethora of accessories and weapon accessories that you can use for other Spawn figures. But this is a fantastic sculpt. I do like the stylized hair, kind of reminiscent of the 90s, but the detail and sculpting work throughout the whole figure is awesome. I know she just got reissued recently with Cygor, and speaking of Cygor, he's not in my display on the table here because he's big as hell, but he's in one of my totes. But he is also a good figure. But this She Spawn figure was such a great deal, especially at 13 bucks. And even if you got the cheap pack with Cygor, it's also a good deal. The only problem is she doesn't come as much weapon accessories as she came with the original release. Now, this next Spawn is slowly starting to become one of my favorites. It's the Shadow of Spawn version from the Mortal Kombat 11 game. But if you're looking for like a definitive or classic Spawn that you don't want to pay high price for because of the Kickstarter, this is a good alternative. But I will say this is starting to go up there in the aftermarket because I think on Amazon you can find this for $40 now. But its original release was 20 bucks. But I like the smoother texture compared to the other Mortal Kombat Spawn. So if you're looking for a classic Spawn, this is definitely the way to go. In terms of aesthetics, this looks more like the traditional old school Spawn figure we got in the Wave 1 back in the day. So that's why I think I'm like slowly starting to like this figure a little bit more than the others. The only thing is the cape isn't as big as that figure, but I'm okay with that. And speaking of my favorites, Medieval Spawn is definitely one of my favorites from this line. I know when looking at this, there's a lot of paintwork missing that could have been added, but I get it, budgets and all that stuff, but it doesn't take away from the awesome sculpt, and I've seen some awesome customizers really bring out the sculpting work of this figure. And I know at some point they're definitely going to announce the Kickstarter one because Todd teased at San Diego Comic-Con. If I had to guess, they're probably going to announce the Kickstarter at the next Toy Fair, which is coming up in about 2 weeks. But this is still a nice placeholder for Medieval Spawn if you're looking to put one in your collection. Now, I'm not going to go through all these, but I saved my favorite for last. It's, of course, the Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn, the one with the sword, the original release. There's a lot of reasons why I really like this figure, and you guys have already seen, or if you haven't seen yet, my Spawn comparison. I always talk about how this was really the catalyst of bringing Spawn back in the mainstream media because everyone was going crazy looking for the Spawn figure because prior to this, we hadn't gotten a fully articulated Spawn figure since that anniversary one, and even that was kind of dated by today's standards, and this just looks awesome to me. Just the overall aesthetics, it can fit in like a live action display or a comic book display or any kind of display just because Spawn's like that. I do like the intricate details on his suit or on his body, but I also appreciate the aesthetics of the Shadow Spawn version. They're both kind of like my favorites up there with Medieval Spawn, but I will always have a place for this Spawn just because of sentimental reasons. This was my first one that I ever got, and also because I really feel like this really propelled Spawn back in the forefront. So there you have it, YouTubers. I kind of just wanted to highlight some of my favorite Spawn figures from the line and just give attention to the line in general. And with the recent announcements this past week, I'm confident to say we're going to get more waves of Spawn figures going forward. If I had like my own personal wish list, I hope they would make animated series version of Spawn just because I think that would be dope in toy form. But let me know in the comments below, who would you like to be made in the Spawn line? Sound off in the comments below. And like always, if you like what you see, be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Go ahead, subscribe. Thanks for watching.